Carolina Panthers fans, it's been a minute since we've had a conversation, but I really want to clap it up for you guys, give you some praise, and have an honest conversation today about your new man in town, head coach Dave Canales. This is one of my guys who I was very high on when we talked about the NFL's coaching carousel. I think you look at some of those other guys. Now, I know a lot of Carolina Panthers fans were high on Ben Johnson. There was also Frank Smith, offensive coordinator for the Miami Dolphins. There was Brian Callahan, former offensive coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals. He's now with Tennessee. And there was Bobby Slowick. Those are some of the guys that quickly come to my mind. Shane Waldron, he went to Chicago. But I think you got one of those guys. When we talk about the new modernized West Coast system, that's what he's bringing. And we're going to talk a little bit about Dave Canales. We're going to talk a little bit about Bryce Young. What is the future of this team? But the biggest thing I want to say today is this the savior? Is this a guy who's going to turn it around for Bryce Young? Some people feel that Bryce Young is broken. Some people are just out on Bryce Young. I'm not out on Bryce Young. I think he has a really good offensive mind to help him, and we're going to find success, hopefully, in the near future for this Carolina Panthers team under this leadership. Now, Dave Canales, who is this guy? If you haven't heard already, you probably have, but I want to give you a little bit of background talking about him. He's most revered for the resurgence of Geno Smith's career. Also did a great job this year with Baker Mayfield. He's really resurged both of those guys. You talk about Baker Mayfield, okay, he was a number 1 overall pick, came out of Oklahoma, former Heisman winner, but had some struggles. Los Angeles Rams, Carolina Panthers, after moving on from the Cleveland Browns. Well, they moved on from him, but we were wondering, what is the arc of this guy's career? Now, I think Baker Mayfield, along with the assistance of an offensive coordinator in Dave Canales, he's walked himself into a new contract. He's probably going to get 2 to 3 years to stay there in Tampa Bay, possibly. If not, it's another team who feels like they're a quarterback away who will pounce on the opportunity of getting Baker Mayfield. But in 2022, when Dave Canales was the passing game, actually the quarterback coach for the Seattle Seahawks, he led Geno Smith to that big-time resurgence where Geno Smith said, they wrote me off, but I didn't write back. That was the year where the Seattle Seahawks made the playoffs, although they lost in the wildcard round to the 49ers. But Geno Smith was the 2022 Comeback Player of the Year. Previous years before that, Dave Canales was the passing game coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks. So he's worked with some great offense. He's worked with Shane Waldron, another guy who, like I said, just went to Chicago as an offensive coordinator. But we're seeing it now. This season, Baker Mayfield totaled 4,044 yards, 28 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. So you think about a Carolina Panthers offense. They struggled immensely. This was a team that went 2-15, and although they had a top 5 defense in yards allowed, they tied with New England for the last scoring offense. So you question it, what does this hire do for the Carolina Panthers? Fix my offense. That's what David Tepper and those guys along that organization are saying to a guy like Dave Canales. Bryce Young in 2023, 2,877 yards, 11 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. And I think what we saw is David Tepper, the way he approached the Frank Reich hiring, it was saying, okay, I have money. We're going to spend my money and we're going to win that way. But that doesn't always work in the NFL. Actually, you want to be quite weary of that because he brought in an all-star staff. You look at Deuce Staley, Thomas Brown, and Giro Avero. Frank Reich is the head coach. They had a lot of dogs, as we like to call it, on the coaching staff for the Carolina Panthers, but it just didn't work for one reason or another. I think for Frank Reich, now you look at it and say, okay, I couldn't succeed with Bryce Young. I think Frank Reich was a guy who wanted C.J. Stroud, and I'm not doing the hindsight is 2020 thing. We're not saying that the Panthers got it wrong. We still have to see what Bryce Young can be, and we're going to see a little bit more under Dave Canales. So you think with this new West Coast system, you think about the weapons they already have. I'm thinking this is a team possibly in free agency, probably free agency and the draft. They're going to attack that wide receiver position. In the backfield, you got Miles Sanders, you got Chuba Hubbard. You think about this offensive line, you're looking at Ike Ekwonu, you're looking at Taylor Moton, Christensen, you have Corbett, he's going to be back healthy. So you're thinking about some of those guys along those lines with the offensive line. Do you want to add to the interior? But I think for the most part, I'm trying to give Bryce Young weapons. Can it be T. Higgins? Can we somehow pry him from the Cincinnati Bengals? Can it be a trade? Can it be Mike Evans? Can we throw him some money? Get him to come here. We're going to say, okay, we may not be the best football team, but can you be here for Bryce Young, help him develop? I think for Mike Evans, this is a guy who you could possibly say you've won a Super Bowl, you're a made man, potential Hall of Famer. Do you want to come here? But it's always a question with the rebuilding team. Do you want to do things like that? But you also think Jerry Jeudy, other guys who are on the market, weapons to get for Bryce Young. You're probably going to want to add another back to pair with Chuba, Miles Sanders still, even though I think they're really a great combination. Chuba is a different runner than Miles Sanders, but overall, it's going to be a lot of motion. It's going to be a lot of quick game. These are the types of things that Bryce Young needs, because when we get into it for the Carolina Panthers, you look at the division: Atlanta Falcons, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and then you got the New Orleans Saints. I feel as if they can hit on those late round picks. Now, we obviously know their first overall pick, the Chicago Bears have it. They're probably going to do something very nice with that pick. But you got to think, if you can somehow hit on these late round draft picks, get healthy on defense. J.C. Horn fully healthy for a season. Some of those other guys, Dante, Frankie, you're looking at that. If everyone can stay healthy, what do you do with Brian Burns? Those are questions on the defensive side of the ball, but I think you got the right guy. And when I say you have the right guy as far as Carolina, my thing is there's no guarantees in the NFL. We can't say, okay, you get Dave Canales. He was great with Baker Mayfield. He was great with Geno Smith. It's obviously going to work. I'm not saying that. What I will say is, though, if there's a guy who's qualified, who checks the boxes for what we want to do and turn this thing around, I think Dave Canales is and was your guy. I really like the move. I think Ben Johnson, the more it's looking, he might actually, if he doesn't get the Washington job, there's an outside shot. I think he get the Seattle job, but there's some other guys I think Seattle likes a bit more. He may actually stay in Detroit with this guy and Jared Goff. So we're looking at it like that. But overall, Carolina Panthers fans, I want to know, what do you think about this move? How do you feel about it? Can Bryce Young be saved? Do you think the direction of this team is looking a little bit better today than it did yesterday, last week? David Tepper, can he stay out of it? Can he stay out of his own way? Let the head coach do what he wants to do. And just one last thing I want to touch on. It's a 6-year deal, but I was surprised, actually, that Dave Canales took the job. I think a lot of teams could have and would have used his services as potentially a head coach. But as you look at the market start to die down a little bit, you're thinking about the Wash Ticket manager and thinking about the Seattle Seahawks. This may have been his best opportunity, probably a team that revered him the most out of those 3 teams. So with that being said, he's a first-time head coach. We always know when you take a chance on a first-time head coach, can the ownership and the management stick through it with Dave Canales? He's going to have to fix some things. It's not going to be come in, we're automatically successful. But can we see some things there? Can we see, okay, we're getting better in year 1? Okay, we progressed a lot in year 2. Can we progress a little bit more in year 3? And then we're getting there. We're hitting on all cylinders. I think that's the type of process you look at for Carolina. But overall, I really like Dave Canales. I want to touch on this today. I think you got it right. And Bryce Young could potentially be saved. Carolina Panthers fans, football fans in general, all of my guys, let me know what you think down below in the comment. Do you like the move? I like the move. That's going to do it for today's show. And now, yeah.